Hello everybody, it's Max McAllister with another episode of Cycle with Max. We're going to do a couple of videos here about chain and drivetrain maintenance, inspection and maintenance on your chain and driveline. So first one I want to do is show you a way to check your chain for wear. And there's a simple tool you can buy. This one's made by Park Tool. It's Chain Checker number 2. This is a nice one. It's, I want to say it's a little bit less than $20. There's a cruder one, a simpler version of this that's just kind of a stick with a little gauge in it that you'll put in the chain and drop into a link and kind of measure. It has some gradients on it for wear. I think that's about $10. I prefer this tool, and I kind of look at it. This is a tool that'll last me my entire life. So I bought the nicer of the two. And the way you do this is put these two pins in between any two links on the chain, and in this window, if you can read, it's going to call out percentage wear. Let me get that in the light there somehow. Well, you can see the 0 to 100 gradients on it. So you're going to read in this little window right here the number that's on the chain. So you'll just place this into a link, place it into another link, and pull on it. Okay, so right now this says it reads around 75. You just need to put a gentle pressure on it. Now, you don't have to push on it hard to get a false reading. I'll check my chain in 2 or 3 places because the wear is sometimes inconsistent around the chain. But in the case of this chain, see, that one's actually reading a little bit above. This is all 75 or more. Now, some people would say, oh, I can ride it to 100% wear. I don't recommend that. So this chain, I actually need to replace. It's worn out. Now, what happens is your chain wears. Actually, all of the little bushings and plates wear, and space is created in them, and the chain gets longer over time, so it's functionally longer. Now, as they change shape, the distance between the pins, it starts eating up the teeth on your chain rings and eating up the teeth in the cogs on your cassette. So riding with a worn chain accelerates the wear on the other components. The chain is the cheapest part of the drivetrain, so you don't want to run the chain until it's completely worn out because you're damaging more expensive parts. But secondarily, your shift performance will drop. It'll be noticeably better. So if you have a 65 to 75% worn chain somewhere in there, chunk it out, get another one, and replace your chain. And you'll notice immediately improved shift quality and shift crispness and performance. A couple of tips with chains. When you put a new chain on your bike, it's always best to degrease it just the same way I'm going to show you how to clean the chain here, deep clean the chain here. They all come packaged with grease on them, and it's not actual chain lubricant, so you don't want that greasy chain, because grease attracts dirt and makes a big mess. Anytime you get dirt and grease and grit in your chain, it's just like toothpaste and grit grinding and scrubbing in there and accelerating wear in the whole system. So super important to keep your driveline clean for that reason. Now, so important along that is the type of chain lube that you choose to lubricate your chain. And so while I normally don't typically recommend a product, in this series, I am going to recommend a product here this is the best I've found. This is Finish Line is the company, and this is a ceramic wax chain lube. This chain lube, so this chain I probably have 300 or 400 miles on it, and since I cleaned it. And if you can see, when I grab my chain, my hand barely gets any dirt on it. So this is one way that helps me get extra mileage because I'm not riding with a dirty, greasy drivetrain. So this product is really good for that. They make one that's wet version if you're going to be riding in wet conditions, but that one gets a little gunkier. And if I have to ride in wet conditions, I'll immediately wash this all off. Typically I'll use this more towards mountain bikes if I know I'm going to be on a wet, muddy ride. But for road bikes, I pretty much never use this ever. I'll always just use the standard ceramic wax chain lube. When you apply it, you know, you can, ideally you'll have some sort of bike stand where you can spin your drivetrain. I've got it up on this table just to make it easy to view. I came up with my own kind of odd way of doing this, but I'll put this under here like a diaper, lay the tube on it and hold it. And the chain's going to pass through my fingers here and get a little greasy, but then I just back this up like this and let it spin. Hang on one second. I'm pulling my own chain off. But so that's kind of the deal. I just do this. Now, what you'll notice is it drags a bit for about 4 turns of the crank, because it's going to take 4 turns of the crank for the chain to go around once. I typically run it around, I count to 8. That way after 4 you'll feel it get slippery, and I go around one more time, and then that'll give me 2 revolutions. You're putting the chain lube to the inside of the chain because you want it to move through, and centrifugally as the chain whips around the cogs and cassettes, it'll work its way out. So don't put your chain lube on the top line or the outside of the chain. It's just a waste and it'll just fling right off and make a mess. So you want it to move through the chain and out. When you're done, take your chain and just kind of wipe the excess off. It doesn't need to be any more than that. And so you want this quiet. If you can hear your chain making any noise, if it's squealing and squeaking, it's self-destructing. So, and if you're riding with your buddy or your friend and you hear his chain squeaking, make sure you tell him, hey bro, throw some lube on your chain because you're killing your bike. So now, if we wanted to clean this chain or change this chain, we've got to get it off. There's 2 ways chains are put onto bikes. Most common and popular nowadays is with something called a power link. It's a little 2-piece part, 2-piece link. Looks like this. The 2 halves are the same, and I'll show you how to put those on in just a moment. How to install that. They basically overlap and interlock this way and assemble and create a link. Shimano chains for years have also used a press pin. And when you find it, you know, if you see these chain pin links here, these pins have a hole in them. If you look on the Shimano chain, you'll find one that's solid. That's kind of where you know it was initially installed. If you're going to break a Shimano chain that doesn't have a power link, they suggest you do it in another place. I suggest you never use those push pins anymore. They're not nearly as good as a power link. So if you have a Shimano chain with a press pin, go to the press pin, push the press pin out, and then we'll push this pin next to it out so the plates fall off, and then we'll put a power link on. The power link makes it very quick and easy to remove and clean and work with your chain. So you're just going to look for your power link. Here it is on my bike right now. And if you didn't have a power link, you'll need a chain breaker of some sort. There's shop grade tools, or we're going to talk about a roadside repair here in another video in a moment. But you need some sort of chain breaker, some way to drive a pin out, and I'll show you how to do that in another video. In this case, I've got a power link here. There's a set of pliers. It's MLP 12. I gotta put my glasses on. This is a Park tool. But there's several companies that have a product like this. But this allows you to grab the chain, pinch the link together, and it will relax and come apart. And that's all there is to that. You can use the tool to put the chain back on, but there's a slick way to do it, which I'll show you in a second here. So if we're going to clean this chain, deep clean this chain, get some rubber gloves on, get a can of some, this is kind of best like electrical contact cleaner. This one says brake cleaner, but we found this product and we've been using it for years here at our shop. It works like electrical contact cleaner, so it evaporates instantly, leaves no residue. And you're just going to spray this chain, spray down into the rollers and the bushings, and then I wiggle it, because as you're wiggling it, they're removing the side plates everywhere, and you're releasing more dirt. and more grit and more goo. What you're looking for is to kind of just watch for it to start flowing clean. So if you have a really gunked up chain, you can expect to use most of a can to get your chain nice and clean. So let's say for time's sake, I've done a good job. If I come up here and tap this, it should start looking pretty clean on a white cloth. And you can kind of keep going until you get it basically spotless. So now we've got a nice clean chain. And so when you go to reinstall the chain, I like to pass the chain through and just kind of drip it in and let it catch and get pulled through some. All right. The only thing you have to watch out for in the rear is on your derailleur, there is every derailleur you'll find some little bar. People will make the mistake and pass the chain around the back of the bar, and that's wrong. You need to go on top of the bar. All right. So chain on top of the little bar, and then through and out. All right. So we're good to go there. Now, to help you can just gently kind of lay your chain off for a moment. I'm going to show you this. On the link is an arrow. You want the arrow going in the direction the chain moves. All right, so you put these opposite of each other. You're going to push the chain close together because the hole is bigger on each side, right in the center. Let's see if I can point directly at that. The hole is bigger here, and when you stretch it, it snaps into a smaller hole. So you're going to put this together and check both sides to make sure that they go in here. Okay, so I've got it. It's not actually snapped yet. It's just loosely connected at the moment. So what you need to do from here is bring that link to the top of the chain line, anywhere along the top chain line. Sorry, here. I'm used to doing this on a bike stand. Get it anywhere on the top chain line, pull the rear brake, and just pop the crank arm. So you pull the rear brake to lock the rear wheel, and come in real close here with the camera. As soon as I pop the crank, the link snaps in. So now it's set. You want to check both sides of the link to make sure they both engage properly. And then I recommend that you take the link and move it to make sure it's completely free. All right. Now, if you've done a good job of cleaning your chain, it'll spin free and quietly. If you ever hear any clunking or a random clunking like that, look at your chain, because you might find there's a link with it that's stuck with a kink in it. It'll make a little hat or a little house in it, right? That's messed up. So you'll need to really aim at cleaning that link, or sometimes they're bound. Sometimes it's just damaged and you might have to replace the chain. But so look for that. Lubricate your chain the way I just showed you, and that's now your chain is deep cleaned. So typically any time I'm deep cleaning the chain, I'm also going to do the cassette, which I'm going to show you in just a second here how to deep clean your cassette. And make sure you clean and wash the chain rings to get all the buildup off of them, and also off of the jockey wheels in your derailleur while you're doing one of these nice deep cleans. So, all right, so that covers inspecting your chain for wear, removing your chain, cleaning it, and reinstalling it. All right, we'll be back in a minute with another video, all right?